want to talk a little bit about why awareness is so important, because I think a lot of us, we hear this phrase, you've got to be more aware, you've got to be more conscious, but I think a lot of us don't really understand why people are even saying that. I think on a conscious level, people have never really cognitively actually and reflected and been introspective about the concept of actually being conscious and what that actually means in their own life. So I want to explore that a little bit today. So I think firstly, one of the reasons why many people are trying to get you to be conscious is really okay. Let me look at it. Let's look at it a different way. So let me give you the second reason because I think it's more important. So the second reason that I wrote down for why you need to be aware or why awareness is so important is that it exposes your choices. Essentially, until you are aware of what it is that you're doing, of where it is that you are, of what it is that you've been, of the choices that you've been making, you cannot know what choices are actually available to you. Because part of awareness is coming to the realization of your own potential, of your own significance, of your own power, right? And a lot of the time, for example, if you look at somebody who is in an abusive relationship, part of the reason why they cannot come out of the abusive relationship is that the person doesn't recognize their own strength. They don't know their own power. They don't know their own potential, their own capacity, their own greatness, because their own value. Because had they known what their value is, they would never have allowed themselves to even get into that kind of situation. Had they known what their standards are, what their boundaries are, they would never have even allowed themselves to get into that kind of situation. You know, one of the things that I say to people all the time, particularly women, is that as a woman, one of the things that you need to know is what is the one thing that if your partner does, will be the end of the relationship. And you need to know that before you get into the relationship. It's funny because at the moment I am writing a little booklet which I'm going to be using to do pre-marriage counseling. And in that, one of the questions, and so it's a booklet with a series of questions that couples have to answer before they come to pre-marriage counseling. And one of the questions in there is, can you tell me what would your partner have to do, or what would your partner do if they did this one thing that you would go and file for divorce? What is that one thing? And the reason why I wrote that in there is because I wanted people to be really conscious of what their boundaries are, of what is it. Because the thing is, the reason why I emphasize this and I put this in there is because a lot of people, when they get into a marriage or they get into a relationship, what will end up happening is that if they're not conscious and aware of what their boundaries or what their standards are, when somebody gets to them, they'll just say, yeah, but it's this one time, and they're going to let the boundary go. And every time that somebody breaks your boundary, it moves a bit further, right? And what ends up happening is you will get to a point where you've lost touch of who you are. I mean, it's a common thing that you hear people say, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know how I ended up here. I don't even know who I've become. And what that means is that the person's boundaries got taken so far and crossed so much, and their standards got lowered so little to the degree where they don't even have self-esteem anymore, right? They can't even come out of the relationship. And so what I would share with you is one of the reasons why becoming aware is so important is so that you can know what your greatness is, so you can know what your potential is, so you can know what your significance, your standards, your value, and the expectations that you have for your life are. Because if you don't, right, the thing is, if you are somebody who is vulnerable, you are and somebody who is unaware of yourself, what will end up happening is you end up getting attacked by narcissists, right? People from the dark triad, people who are psychopaths, people who are manipulative. And let me give you some of the rhetoric that these individuals use. A psychopath will say this. If they get into, or a narcissist will say something like this when they get into a relationship with you and cheat on you or abuse you or whatever it may, manipulate you or whatever it may be. The fact that you didn't recognize that they are liars, that they are manipulators, that they are psychopaths, gives them justification to do it, because you're so stupid and so unaware of yourself that you actually allowed them to get to the point that they've got into your life, they've infiltrated your friendship, they've isolated you, they've got you to a position where you can't even take care of yourself. They've got access to your bank accounts, they've got access to your passwords, they control what you wear, what you say, where you go, they control every aspect of your life. A psychopath or a narcissist will say, you're the fool. You are going to say, well, it's their fault, they're narcissists. But the way that they see it is, you're so stupid that you actually allowed them to do it. And so part of, there is this really famous saying, which I can't exactly remember the phrase, but the phrase goes something on the lines of, it's better to be, in fact, let me see if I can find it here. Here it is, because I love this quote. So the quote goes like this: it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. I repeat, it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. What that means is that part of life is giving and taking. Part of life is building, but also defending. Right. So, for example, in that pre-marriage counselling, one of the things that I talk about, and I ask the couples individually to both fill out, is what periods of your life do you need to protect your husband? What part of your relationship or marriage do you need to protect your wife? Because I say this because part of having a relationship, as you build it, as you create in this incredible life, is you got to defend people against it, because anything which is bountiful, anything which is rich, is going to be tried to be taken. Somebody is going to try to take it. Do you know there are women who deliberately go out for men who are married, right? Because a man who's married is usually domesticated, he's usually well educated, he's usually secure in his job. A woman would much rather have that. So these women, they deliberately go out for those kinds of men. Right? And as a woman, you have to be so wise and so cognizant of this that you actually defend your man. One of the things that I talk about in this pre-marriage counseling is that one of the times that you need to protect your husband is when he gets a promotion, particularly when he becomes partner, managing director, he becomes a CEO. And the reason why that is because when a man gets to that level of position, every woman wants him. Right? Every woman wants a man who is the CEO, who is the alpha, who is the man who has got connections, is influential, is somebody who is confident, is somebody who is competent. So I say this because in that pre-marriage counseling, I say to women that if you are naive enough to actually think that women are not going to go after your husband, and do you know when this usually happens? This usually happens between around the kind of when people have been married for about 8-9 years. Do you think that it's a coincidence that one of the most common times that people divorce is between 7 years and 11 years? Of course not. When does that happen? That typically is when a man gets to become a director, a partner. And what's one of the reasons women use and complain about as being the reason why men divorce? Cheating. So you have to be aware of this as a woman. And that all goes back to knowing what your choices are, knowing having that awareness within yourself. One of the other things that comes out of awareness is destruction. So one of the reasons why awareness is so important is that unless you're aware of your choices, you will not know the damage that you're actually doing. I did not. Sometimes, a lot of people, and I've met people who've done this, have been in relationships, and their relationships have been abusive, and they think, yeah, well, Kasim, well, at least I'm the one who's getting the pain, and I'm taking the pain. And I'm saying to them, I don't think that you're aware of the destruction that you're causing around you. Do you honestly think that you being in an abusive relationship isn't impacting your mum, your dad, your brother, people around you, your work colleagues? Because everyone around you is seeing it. Everyone around you knows that there is something wrong with you, but they just can't figure out what it is because you're so good at covering up the abuse or whatever it may be in your life. I say to people, if you've got a gambling problem and you're not even or a drinking problem and you're not even aware that it's a drinking problem, do you honestly think that you're the only person who's being exposed to this? There are people all around you, who you're causing destruction to, and they're realizing this. Let's go back to the example of abuse. As somebody who's in an abusive relationship, you cause people anxiety. People are constantly worried about you. Are you safe? Are you okay? Should they text you? What should they text you? Should they call you? Should they invite you for dinner? When they invite you for dinner, what should they ask? It's kind of like, you understand, it's such a it just causes so many problems around you, and if you're not even aware of this, the destruction that your unawareness can cause is unbelievable. It is unreal, okay? But actually, one of the other things as well on that, which is the opposite, is really, if you're unaware of your choices, you can be unaware of the bounty and the beauty that you're actually creating in the world. You have some people who are so unaware of their choices, of their decisions, that they aren't even aware that there are people around them who they're impacting, that there are people around them who admire them, that there are people around them who look up to them. And actually that goes back to realizing your own truth, realizing your narrative, realizing your work ethic. And some people are just unaware of this. And how I learned this was when I started studying successful people and I started interviewing successful people. I'd ask them, how were you successful? How did you do it? A lot of people didn't know. They had no clue. They would just say, well, I don't know. I just kind of did stuff and I became successful. And you're like, well, how did you do it? I remember I started interviewing people who were married for 15 years or more. And I started asking them, what is your secret? How have you been married for 15 years or more? And you're still happy and you have this great family and you're both bountiful. How did you do it? And people will say, I don't really know. And so I started to learn, right. Some people just instinctively or with common sense have just naturally achieved something, but they've not actually been aware. And I'm saying to them, well, you realize that there are people who find your marriage admirable because you've been married for so long and you're both so much in love, and they're like, yeah, actually, I've never really thought about it like that before. So I say this because, like, one of the things that I think is really important is particularly, like, let's go back to what I was saying earlier on about the pre-marriage counselling. One of the questions that I have for couples in pre-marriage counselling is what is the purpose of you being together going to improve in your community, right? How is you being together going to improve the world? Is one of the questions that I have for the couple, because a lot of couples make their relationship everything. But actually, your relationship should be an addition to your purpose, right? Meaning that if your relationship breaks down, you should still be on route to your purpose, right? And a lot of people don't get this. A lot of people are stopped in life because partly they made their relationship everything. And when I go through marriage counselling, I try to get people to understand that your relationship isn't everything. It can't be everything. Your kids can't be everything. You know, I have a philosophy which is that never make anything everything. You hear people say, my kids are my everything. No, your kids can't be your everything. Or money is everything. No, money can't be everything. Or family is everything. No, family cannot be everything. Or my business is my everything. No, or my car is my everything. No, never make anything everything, because if that one area crumbles and falls, you're fucked. You're absolutely fucked. And you see it a lot in marriages. People's marriages break down and literally the entire life is destroyed. It's just destructed to the point where people commit suicide. And so what I would share with you is, work on trying to be more conscious and more aware of your choices, of what is available to you, of how you're impacting people, of the choices that you're making that are not directly or are indirectly connected with other people. And I think it will really add some value to your life. I think it will really take your life to a whole different level. I hope this has been useful for you guys, and thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.